With the huge JP Morgan healthcare conference coming next Monday, I think it's time to circle back to maybe the hottest area, one of last year's hottest sectors. I'm talking about the biotech plays working on what's known as cancer immunotherapy. The idea here is that rather than making drugs that kill cancer directly and also do serious damage to the healthy parts of your body, we always call that carpet bombing, these companies help your body's immune system to target and destroy cancer cells. Revolutionary approach, which is why immunotherapy plays like Kite Pharma and the newly published Juno Therapeutics, they've been on fire, maybe too on fire. Now, there are two different kinds of immunotherapy. We've talked about the CAR-T immunotherapy, which involves taking your body's T cells and re-engineering them directly to combat cancer. But there's another type known as checkpoint inhibitors, which are drugs that take away the ability of cancer cells to hide from your immune system. These are being developed by the big boys, Merck, Bristol Myers, AstraZeneca. Put it all together, and this could be a gigantic moneymaker, not to mention something that saves a lot of lives. Last week on Today's Show, I heard incredibly cogent comments on this from Dr. Natalie Azar. She's NBC's medical contributor and professor of rheumatology at NYU Langone Medical Center. She's here to help us take a deeper dive into what could be the future of oncology. The better we understand the medical side, the better we can understand the stocks. Dr. Azar, welcome to Mad Money.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Doctor, it almost seems like what you're trying to do is create cells that are like bloodhounds, that they somehow find the scent of cancer and then go for it.
Right. And that's a very, very, very good way to put it. If you think about it, what I always like to tell people, the human body is probably the most sophisticated, elegant machine that there is. There are so many systems of checks and balances that we have within our own immune system that basically allows us to be healthy human beings and live amongst our environment. Examples of when that goes awry: autoimmunity, cancer, just to name two of the big ones. So these particular drugs, what I love about this is that this is basically trying to augment what our bodies are trying to do anyway. We have cells that are called T cells that are naturally meant to kill off cancer cells when they arise. But this thing called PD sits on the surface of these tumor cells and acts, as you mentioned, like a brake and doesn't allow the body to do what it wants to do, and that is to kill off the cancer cell.
Well, it seems as if this method, this immunotherapy, is having some dramatic results. I want you to temper my enthusiasm, if possible, for leukemia and for cervical cancer.
Yeah, and the PD-1 inhibitors in particular have shown tremendous promise in a lot of different cancers, particularly melanoma, and there was drug approval last fall for a melanoma drug. There is in kidney cancer, in bladder cancer, in non-small cell lung cancer, and then most recently also in the fall we had two very promising early results in Hodgkin's lymphoma. So we're actually, this is good also, this is for people to understand, many different kinds of cancers. We have what we call solid tumors. We have blood cancers like lymphoma. So if we have a drug that's potentially going to show, promise in different kinds of cancers, that's very exciting for us.
Do you ever, I not ask you about the individual companies, but what happens? A company's running a test and and you hear about the test results? I mean, or are doctors running tests and they're using different, some of these companies that we mentioned, using their formulations?
Well, I mean, the way these studies get done, it has to go through 3 different phases, right? They start with a small patient population, make sure that it's just safe. Then they increase it. They go to a phase 2 trial, more patients. Then you want to try to have a randomized control scenario. And then phase 3, ultimately, you're testing it in a greater population. And the whole way, what you're hoping to see, obviously, is efficacy. That is how well the drug works. And second, and probably an even more important endpoint, is how safe the drug is. And that's how the drugs at some point get to market. A lot of these drug trials are done within institutions and academic medical centers. A lot of them obviously are funded by, big pharma.
Right, but if I had to make a bet that these were going to be commercial, meaning that this is just the method of operation, am I speaking 2016, 2017, 2018? It's
probably, it takes a few years for a drug to come to market, obviously. But this, the idea that we have what we call the benefit of this translational research. I mentioned that term on the Today Show. It's this idea that you're taking what you understand about the mechanism of a disease and you're targeting something very specific. This has been the case for biologic therapies and certain other targeted molecular therapies in cancer for a number of years now.
So we're not as early.
We're not that far off.
Then that is investable.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the first studies was actually done at CHOP in UPenn on a pediatric population with ALL. Exactly. And the results were so promising, and there was a little bit of buzz, but the patient population was very, very small.
Right.
But they had fantastic
Yeah,
results.
24. I saw the numbers there. 24 out of 20. I mean, it's an incredible number
it's dramatic.
of kids.
And I think, again, we have to keep in mind, too, where is this going to be in place in the armamentarium of treating cancer?
Right.
Is it going to be first line? Maybe not. Maybe we're still
Right.
going to go with the tried and true, but it might be for those patients where there were no more options left, it's going to be their last hope before a bone marrow transplant, which is obviously so potentially toxic and dangerous.
Well, then, you know what? Maybe it's not as, I don't always want to temper enthusiasm, but this sounds like they've got something. These companies have something.
Let me tell you, this is not, these drugs are going to probably end up being safer and more effective than the chemo we've been using for decades.
I like what I hear.
Yeah.
That's Dr. Natalie Azar. She's NBC's medical contributor, professor of rheumatology at NYU Langone Medical Centers. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thanks,
Terrific.
Jim.